Good day, students. You are welcome to sirMATHS in this mathematical journey. Today, we are going to treat quadratic equation as it affects grade 11 equivalent to SS2 quadratic equation. For grade 11/SS2. Quadratic equation is in this format. The highest degree of quadratic equation is 2. We mentioned, in linear equation, you discussed in your former grades, you were told that the highest degree of linear equation is 1. But for that of quadratic equation is 2. When we are asked to solve quadratic equation, it must be equated to 0. So under this quadratic equation, we have different methods of solving quadratic equation, such as factorization, we also have completing the square, we have formula method, and then we also have graphical method. These are ways of solving quadratic equation. Not all quadratic equation is factorizable. Some of the quadratic equation are not factorizable. When you meet such a situation, you apply any of the other methods, such as completing the square method, or formula method, or graphical, to solve such a problem. Let us start with a factorization method. Factorization method. You have to know how to factorize an equation, how to factorize particularly quadratic equation. You know the meaning of factorizing. Factorizing is compressing, which is opposite of expansion. So here you may be asked to factorize an equation. Let's have this factorize a question such as a squared plus 4a minus 21. A squared plus 4a minus 21. We expected to factorize this, to compress it. In quadratic equation, we have 3 components. We call this component A. This is component A, while this is B, and this is C. So what you do is to find a product of component A and component C. If you do that, we are now going to have minus 21a squared. Minus 21a squared. Then we look for the 2 factors whose product will give us minus 21a squared, but whose sum will give us plus 4a. 2 factors, product minus 21a squared, and sum will give us plus 4a. You can see that such number will be 7 and 3. 7 and 3. But since this is positive, this plus 4a, that implies out of these two numbers, 7 and 3, the bigger one will be positive while the smaller one will be negative, because this is positive and this is negative. One will be negative, the smaller one, and the bigger one will be positive because this is positive. We now substitute those values for this 4a by now having a squared plus 7a minus 3a minus 21. By so doing, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. We group in twos. 1, 2, we group as 1. 1, 2, we also group as 1. Remember that the sign in between, be it negative or positive, must be on its own. It won't belong to any of the two brackets. Then you ask yourself, what is common in this first bracket? If you look very well, you discover that a is here, a is here. We bring out that as our common factor. When we divide a squared by a, we now have a left. And we divide 7a by a, we will have 7. Then in the second bracket, we ask ourselves, what is common here? If you work very well, you discover that 3 is here. 3 is also in 21. So that will give us, we bring out 3 as our common factor. 3a divided by 3 will give us a. And negative divided by negative, remember it will give you positive. And 21 divided by 3 will give you 7. Also, let this be clear to you that whatever is in this bracket must be the same here, both in value and in sign. You can't have a plus 7 here and a minus 7 here, then something is wrong. You trace the problem and settle it. Having done that, we now collect. We have our a minus 3 as a bracket. We just pick one out of these. A plus 7. They are all the same. So we have factorized. We have compressed what we were given. That is factorization. We have factorized. But when we are asked a question and say, we are given a quadratic equation and say, solve by factorization. Remember here, we have not arrived well if it is solving this by factorization. Because when we are asked to solve a quadratic equation by factorization, when that word solve is there, it then means we are expected to find the root of that quadratic equation. But for this, we are just asked to factorize, and we have done that. So let's now take it that we are asked to solve this particular equation by factorization method. Let's go to the board. So solve the equation which we did use before, a squared plus 4a minus 21, and that will be equals to 0 when we are solving. So we solve this. We have our question, a squared plus 4a minus 21 equals to 0. Remember I told you this is component A, this is component B, and this is component C. And so we multiply component A and C, giving us minus 21a squared. And we find a factor, two factors, whose product will give us this, and whose sum will give us, whose product will give us minus 21a, but the sum will give us plus 4a. We said that that will be 7 and 2, 7 and 3. So we have plus 7a minus 3a minus 21 equals to 0. And so we now group. We now have this as one group and this another group. We discover that a is common, and when we divide a squared by a, we have a, and divide 7a by a, we have 7. And minus 3 is common, that gives us a. Negative divided by negative is positive, and 21 divided by 3 is 7 equals to 0. we collect a minus 3 times a plus 7 equals to 0. You know that when the product of two numbers gives you 0, one of that number must be 0. Like 8 times 0 is 0, and 0 times 8 is 0. 8 times 0 is equal to 0, or 0 times 8 will give you 0. Any number times 0 will result to 0. So since a minus 3 times a plus 7 is equal to 0, one of these numbers must be 0. And so we now say that either a minus 3 is equal to 0 or a plus 7 is equal to 0. Then we collect like terms and solve ordinarily. So that means that a is equal to the negative 3 crossing equality sign becomes positive 3, or a equals to positive 7 crossing equality sign becomes negative 7 minus 7. We now summarize our answer and say a is equals to 3, minus 7. We have been able to solve this given quadratic equation. This will be our result. That is the root or the solution of this very quadratic equation. So let's also take another example to this effect and solve. Still under factorization. Let's have b squared minus b minus 12 equals to 0 to solve by factorization. Component A times component B will give us minus 12b squared. We now find two numbers, two factors, whose product will give us minus 12b squared, but whose sum will give us minus b. 4 and 3 can do that. And since this is negative and this is negative, one of the factors must be positive, while one will be negative. And since this is negative, the bigger out of the two factors will be negative. I suggest we have 4 and 3. Then the bigger will be negative, so this will be negative. We now substitute these two factors in the place of minus b. That will give us b squared minus 4b plus 3b minus 12 equals to 0. We now group. What is common here is b. b squared divided by b will give us b. 4b divided by b will give us 4. And we have 3 is common here. We bring out the 3 as a common factor. 3b divided by 3 is b. 12 divided by 3 is 4 equals to 0. You can agree with me that what is in this bracket is exactly what is in this bracket. Like I said, they must be the same both in value and in sign. And so we now collect. We have a b minus 4 times b plus 3 equals to 0. It doesn't matter the one you collect first. You can collect this first or this first, doesn't matter, because it's a multiplication. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. It doesn't matter whichever one that comes first. Since b minus 4 times b plus 3 is equals to 0, either b minus 4 is equal to 0 or b plus 3 is equal to 0. Therefore, b will give us 4, as the negative 4 crossing becomes positive, or b equals to minus 3. Positive crossing equality sign becomes negative. So we have for our solution b is equals to 4, minus 3. This is the result for this. That is solving quadratic equation by factorization. this is what it will give us. If we are factorizing, just factorizing, that was the first example we had. And if we are asked to solve, we must arrive at the root. You know that I told you that the highest degree of quadratic equation is 2. So our solution must be 2 because of this. That is why we have 1, 2 in each of these very quadratic equation. Let's go ahead and check other aspects of this. The second method, which we said is completing the square method. Completing the square method. Completing the square. There are rules for this very particular completing the square method. There are rules. We will run down the rules. But before then, we may be given a part of quadratic equation and will be expected to complete it, so that that very given function, that expression, will now become a perfect number. Let us look at that before we now go to this completing the square proper, where we first of all state the rules. If we are asked what will be added, what will be added to x squared plus 10x to make the expression a perfect number. What will be added to this to make it a perfect square or a perfect number? Let me use that word square, perfect square, for more understanding. You know, in mathematics, there are several ways of solving one problem. There are several ways. There's no one particular way of solving a problem in mathematics. There are so many ways. That's why somebody telling you this is the only method, what the person means is this is the only method I know. Let's use this short method in solving this issue. We have x squared plus 10x. What we do, what will be added to this expression to make it a perfect square is we add the square of the half of the coefficient of the first degree. This is first degree, this x, because it's raised to power 1. This is second degree because it's raised to power 2. I repeat, what will be added to this? This will be plus, because of that word add, the square of the half of the coefficient of this very first degree. And that is when the coefficient of the second degree is unit, as we have it here. If this is more than 1, you first of all divide every item by that very coefficient. Before you now apply the new coefficient as a result of the division, the square of the half of it to this very expression to make it a perfect square. And so what we have here is x squared plus 10x plus 10 divided by 2 will give us 5 squared, resulting to x squared plus 10x plus 25. So it's 25 that we added to this expression to make it a perfect number, a perfect square, sorry. Now in the question, you may be expected to express your answer in a perfect square. Express your answer in a perfect square. In that situation, from what we have here, from this, which is x squared plus 10x plus 5 squared. You simply pick this variable x and pick this 5 and square everything. So this is, you have expressed your answer in a perfect square. That is, if the question say express your answer in a perfect square. But if it just you are asked to what will be added to x squared plus 10x to make it a perfect square, this is MKE. You just stop here. You have found the answer. That number is 25. That is what we added to this expression to make it a perfect square. That is for this. Now, like I said before, we now go on to express the fundamental rules in making a number, or rather solving a complete or square method. We will write it down. You should know it already. I'm sure you must have discussed it previously. One is when we are given that very quadratic equation, we now rearrange by making the constant to be at the right hand side. We rearrange. Second, we divide by the coefficient of the second degree each item. If the second degree is, the coefficient is more than 1, we do that. However, we will continue from where we stopped in this very discussion, because we have to treat this quadratic equation to the end. We will treat the formula, method, and we treat other aspects of it. When we are given the root, how do we get the equation, the quadratic equation? We will do that. I appeal to you, remember to subscribe to sirMATHS by turning on the notification to stay updated in this our weekly discussion on maths. It is a journey in the world of numbers. Please do that, and you'll be enjoying our day-to-day discussion. Like I said, today our discussion is on grade 11. The quadratic equation affects that, which is equivalent to SS2. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you for following us. We will meet again next week by God's grace. Thank you.